Mr. Danielson will be filming us today. So thank you for being here, Bruce.
As many of you have seen over the last 7 years, I am what I am. I'm not afraid to speak what I believe, and I make darn sure that my actions are in sync with my words. One of the things I truly hope folks see in me is that I'm not going to be controlled by others, whether it be a person, business, organization, or a cause. For example, as mayor of Sioux Falls, I've always listened intently to special interest groups, but I will not be beholden by them. I remember early on, my first term as mayor, a very prominent and influential developer met with me in the mayor's office. After some discussion, he relayed to me, "Mayor, now let me tell you how we're going to do things around here." I paused. I looked at him directly in the eye and replied, "I certainly appreciate all that you and your team have done for Sioux Falls, and I look forward to doing some good things with you and your team. However, let me be very clear. We'll be doing things differently as long as I am your mayor." Over time, we both grew to appreciate each other and became public-private partners in helping to make Sioux Falls one of the best cities in America. As I said, I am what I am. I make independent decisions based on what is responsible and prudent for my family, my employer, my friends, and the citizens I am blessed to serve. In elections, I vote for the best candidate. I voted for Governor Dugard because he has served South Dakota very well. His last 2 years are the most productive for a governor that I have witnessed since Governor Jankel's days in Pierre. I just voted for Senator John Thune because his record and his qualifications far outweighed his opponent. I have always supported policies or initiatives that are good for the city, state, and country as a whole, even if it was controversial or unpopular. In cities and towns all across South Dakota, all across our great state, city and school officials, they lead in an incredibly sound fashion, and they do it without party labels. I recently voted for the ballot initiative that would have improved our chances of putting the best person in the role versus a system that relies heavily on whether the candidate has an R or a D in front of their name. Stewardship is a big deal for my family, as all of you know. Our faith drives us to utilize our time, talent, and treasure to make a difference for everyone, no matter their race, creed, color, religion, and yes, political party. Can you only imagine our society and our quality of life in Sioux Falls and South Dakota if we donated to causes like the Banquet, the Salvation Army, the United Way, or Special Olympics based on political affiliation versus the incredible difference they make? I take the day that God gives me and I want to get things done. I found the best way to do that is to lead at the highest level, collaborate proactively, and communicate big time. Find common ground, and then use a heavy, heavy dose of common sense and business sense to move forward. I do this in life, I did this in business, and I'm doing this in government too. I am a fiscal conservative and a social libertarian that prefers the middle. And I am very proud of the title moderate. The extremes of the left and the right are creating such an anti-establishment anger and ineffectiveness. And mark my words, they want it to continue. They're digging in their heels. For example, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi was just re-elected as the United States House of Representatives Minority Leader. Folks are shaking their head with the lack of common sense and full dose of denial with that move. Regardless of your political party, that decision is absolutely frightening because it shows the highest level leaders in D.C., they don't give a lick about what folks back home care about. It's no secret that Sioux Falls, the state of South Dakota, and the United States of America are taking notice. There is a hunger for change. The working class, millennials, and yes, millions and millions of Americans that are Democrats and Republicans, they want things done differently. They are registering as independents in droves. They are voting independently based on the person versus the politics. There is a movement out there, and it is real. They are clamoring for productive government, and that begins with elected leaders that are free and, yes, maybe more importantly, obligated to do what is best. I, too, am inspired by this movement. After this press conference, I am heading directly to the Minnehaha County Administration Building. I will be registering as an independent. Party labels do not drive me. Leaving things better for my grandson George and others, that drives me. Making decisions for the benefit of the citizens I serve, that drives me. My head, my heart, and my gut drives me. And yes, that deep down to the bone, independent streak that God has blessed me with since I was a kid drives me too. I want to thank you for joining me today. I look forward to answering any questions that you may have. Yes?
What are you thinking about running for office?
Well, the discussion today was focused entirely on my decision to register as an independent. And, right now I'm honored to serve as the mayor of Sioux Falls. I'm blessed to serve as the mayor of Sioux Falls, and that's exactly what I'm committed to do.
So why did you feel the need to come out and say that you're doing this?
Well, I think that one of the things that has been pretty clear when you're in this pretty high-profile office, people get a chance to know you, and one of the things that they also recognize is that you do have a political affiliation, or at least you did, and mine has changed.
And why has it changed?
I think I just gave you a pretty good indication of why it's changed, Dan.
And what would you find as far as leading the Democrats in the House? Who would you find more palatable than someone other than Nancy Pelosi?
Dan, I think the thing that was so incredible about that particular move was that it didn't matter if you're a Republican, an independent, a Democrat, whether you lived on East Coast, West Coast, North, South, whether you were in another country across the globe. It was so evident to everybody that America was so hungry for change, hungry for new leadership, hungry for a different style of leadership. It was so incredibly obvious, and yet there was this elected leader that was put back into power for, yes, the National Democratic Party, and I just was flabbergasted by it. So Dan, I don't want to say that anybody could do that role, because that's not appropriate, but certainly there've got to be some other leaders that are capable of doing that role, whether it be the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, whatever it would be. I mean, it's all of America that is looking for change. They want something different. They want productive government. They want collaboration. They want communication. And doing something or just maintaining a leader that's been doing it the same way for a long time, I just thought was astounding. And I think, I certainly know I'm not alone.
Does this better position you for a statewide run?
Well, I think that one of the things I've been very, very blessed with is that I've got people all over South Dakota that, they lift me up every day, they cheer me on, and they certainly have encouraged me to do some other things. But like I've said, I am truly focused on being the best mayor that I can be. That's what I was elected to do. And I think what I found, and what others have found, is that when you have a strong Sioux Falls, that certainly impacts South Dakota in a positive way. And when you have a strong South Dakota, that certainly impacts Sioux Falls in a positive way. And so that again is probably the key. Not only do I have a pretty independent streak, South Dakotans have a pretty independent streak too. And I think ultimately they just want folks to do the right thing, whether it's in Presho or Tripp, Eureka, or in Sioux Falls. And that's what I've been trying to do in Sioux Falls, and I think people are noticing.
Have you come across any difficulties being a Democrat in the state?
Well, not in my role. I'm the mayor of Sioux Falls. Thank goodness it's a nonpartisan office. And that's where I talked about, I think you've got school officials and town officials and city officials all across the state that are doing great things, because for the most part they're nonpartisan races. And I think what that does is it tends to put the best people in the role, and then allows them to lead in the fashion that they deem fit. I think that reality is that more and more you've got partisan politics that are creeping into things like city government, and that should frighten everybody as well, because it's not a good thing. And so to answer your question, I think that as that has happened more and more, I don't think it has mattered whether I was a Democrat or a Republican. But I think that having any partisan politics creep into city government has not been good.
When did you make this decision?
Well, I probably started to make it probably about 2.5, 3 years ago. And have been talking about it with Cindy and others for a long, long time. Again, I think that we all have gone through kind of a transformative period, especially over the last year, when we saw things kind of probably kind of reach that crescendo in terms of frustration, in terms of just the magnitude of the concern that we have for our country. And that also, was reached for me too. I mean, I'm not alone in this, and I mean it sincerely. I mean, you look all across America right now. It's not just millennials, even though I do think that they're leading the way. It's not just the working class, even though I do think that they are leading the way. I mean, it's Republicans, it's Democrats in a big, big way that say, you know what? don't want to be tied to a certain party in terms of the decision-making. We want things that are done based on what's good for everyone. And so, but I will tell you, certainly what was happening before the presidential election, I don't know if it could have got any worse in Washington, D.C. And then after you saw what happened with the last election, I think that it certainly was a wake-up call for all of America. And for those folks who haven't woken up yet, I think it's time. And but I'm not putting my head in the sand. And this is just something that I really think. Not only do I want to be part of that movement, maybe I want to maybe be one of the leaders in that movement.
You mentioned voting for Dugard and
Yes.
Thune. Did you vote for Trump?
I'm not going to tell you who I told you who I voted for in 2 cases. I'm not going to go through the laundry list of people that I voted for.
Did you have any conversations with South Dakota Democratic Party
I have
leaders
not.
about this decision?
Nope. Right now, the people that know about this are my daughter Kylie and my wife Cindy.
So what made you decide to make this announcement now? You said you've been pondering it for like 2-3 years. What made you to just now decide that you're going to go down and do this?
You know, again, I've been pondering it for a long, long time, and at some point in time, you make a decision to do it, and I did.
What do you hope that South Dakota voters, those who support you and those who don't, take from, I guess, you deciding to no longer be a Democrat and become an independent?
Mark, you're the one who just mentioned South Dakota voters. I've not mentioned South Dakota voters one time.
How about residents? South Dakota residents, Sioux Falls residents, what sort of message do you hope them to take from, you deciding to no longer be a Democrat and be an independent?
Pretty clear. I am an independent in spirit. My actions have been independent. My leadership has certainly been independent. And now I'm registering independent as well.
Who will your allies be in the coming months and years as an independent? Do you...
I think every citizen in Sioux Falls, every citizen in South Dakota will be my ally. Because again, there's a hunger for doing the right thing, for leading based on what's good for the cause or good for the people, versus doing something that some special interest group wants you to do, and that includes parties. And so yeah, I think I'll have plenty of allies, because again, I'm not trying to turn this into, I understand it, I get it. This is a personal decision that I knew there would be some questions in terms of political consequences or political realities or political future. So I don't want to minimize that, okay? And I think it's fair. Today, I'm trying to give you my personal preference and a personal decision that I'm making. And certainly, I understand I'm a fairly high-profile person in a high-profile job. So I certainly respect the question. But today, it's a very, very personal decision, and I want to let you folks know about it.
You said that you, in this movement to be independent, you want to be a leader in this.
Yeah.
Since it's something personally, have you personally just thought over how you would, be a leader in this, be at the forefront of, I guess, this change towards being independent? Have you mulled that over yet?
About 1 million times.
What sort of answers or conclusions have you come to?
Same things that I've mulled on when I was, wanted to run to become the mayor. The same things I've been mulling since I've been your mayor. The city, the state, the country, they're hungry for leadership. They're hungry for independent leadership. They want to get things done. They want to make things more service-friendly, more productive, more efficient, value the taxpayer dollar, and they don't want to be beholden to special interest groups. And I think that folks in Sioux Falls have seen that that's the last thing that I'm going to do, and it's probably frightened a lot of people, especially those special interest groups, because I am going to do what I think is right for the people that I serve, for my family, for my business, for my church. And so yeah, I mull it over all the time. And the second I leave here, I'm going to continue to mull it over. I think that I'm very, very fortunate in that, you know, I do have the opportunity to lead in the way that I think is best suited for the people that I serve. You know, I value this job at the highest level, but ultimately, you know, I don't need it. I'm not beholden to this role, and I think that certainly has frightened some people probably from the minute that I was elected, and that is, again, I'm going to be independent. Now I'm going to be registering independent as well.
Are there other independent leaders around the country that you've looked to as a potential model, or just that you've thought about in making this decision?
Well, I think that a lot of the independent leaders that I've looked up to are right here in Sioux Falls and in South Dakota. You know, I've got many friends that have, you know, led at the highest level. And I'm not going to mention them by name here today, but you know, they're pretty independent in the way that they act, the way that they lead, the way that they vote, and also their party affiliation as well.
You talk a lot about Nancy Pelosi, but is this what?
I didn't talk a lot I'm it. I talked about it once.
As part of your reasoning.
But it certainly was one of those things that dumbfounded me.
I'm curious, like, is this a statement against the Democratic Party? Do you have anything you'd like to say to them? You know, when they read it?
No. It's not tailored towards the Democratic Party. I think I tailored it towards DC as a whole. There's plenty of examples of how, you know, the establishment, the leadership in DC, the leadership across our country, whether you're Republican or Democrat, how they just don't get it. They're not responding to the people. They're putting the same old people in leadership positions on this side or leadership positions on that side. And that is very, very disturbing to me. But that was one that I think may rise to the top in terms of certainly garnering my attention. And I think you could understand why.
And just so we get it on the record, you were registered as a Democrat
Yes.
before you did this.
Yes.
And at this point, you are not, there's no plans, you're not making an announcement today of any running for U.S. House or governor or anything today?
There was absolutely no mention of that. Right now, I'm in probably about 2 minutes, or once this press conference is over, I'm going to drive directly to Minnehaha County Administration Building. I'm going to take a right as I walk in the door. I'm going to ask for the card, and I'm going to sign my name as an independent. You know, we'll save discussions about you know, other roles in my life's journey for another day. But again, folks, I've got 1.5 years to serve as the mayor of Sioux Falls. And as you can attest, a couple of weeks ago, you never know what's going to happen as you're the mayor. And you better stay focused in that role, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
What would you like to see DC accomplish in the next year? Are there things you think that practically could get done? Well,
I think that some of the fundamentals, you know, actually doing things where you would communicate. I mean, what a concept. Actually sit down in the same room and communicate about challenges that we face as a country. And then after you communicate, you start to debate, but you ultimately you find common ground. And you ultimately try to get things done. And again, I said this, and I mean it sincerely. I like the middle. I have no problem being called a moderate. And I think that one of the challenges that we've faced in our country, especially over the last 4 to 8 years, is that instead of governing in the middle, we're trying to govern on the extremes. And that hasn't served our country well in any way, shape, or form. And to be fair, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. There's some of that momentum that is actually maybe occurring out in Pierre as well. Again, I have no problem. I'm proud of Governor Dugard, especially over the last 2 years. I mean, he tackled a couple of things that truly needed moderation, needed middle ground, needed collaboration to get done. You know, increasing funding for, you know, schools and teacher pay. Can you imagine the hits that he took? But he did the right thing. He was working towards the middle. And one of the things that I know that there's a concern out in Pierre this year is that there's a lot of folks on the extremes that didn't like that. And they're going to do everything in their power to change that back to the way it was. I don't think we should do that at all. I think that you know, we should just keep continuing working towards the middle. You know, I'm not going to. I think there are some things that President-elect Trump is doing that were similar to some of the things that I did as mayor. And he's certainly not following my lead, I guarantee you that. But he is stirring up the pot. You know, he is bringing in some people that have, you know, business acumen that are going to challenge the status quo at the highest level, that are going to take some risks and make some mistakes. We did that in Sioux Falls, and I think it's served us well. And so, you know, there's certainly a number of things that I don't agree with President-elect Trump, just like, you know, I did with Secretary of State Clinton. But there are some things that President-elect Trump is doing as well that I find intriguing.
Could you provide some more specifics on that? Were there any certain picks that you thought, that's a good move, I would have done the same?
No, but I think what he's doing is he's not picking the establishment candidate or the establishment person to put into a certain role. And I think that, you know, making folks nervous like that isn't always a bad thing. When I was elected mayor, I replaced, 8 out of the 12 department heads that were in, you know, serving the people of Sioux Falls at the time. And I know that certainly, you know, ruffled some feathers. The airport authority, I didn't replace people that have been serving there for a long time, because I felt that, you know, our airport needed to go into a different direction. I think that is, you know, that's not always a bad thing. One thing specifically that if I could, and I mean it, no holds barred, I do think that we should be running government like a business. I do. I made that very, very clear, and I've taken my share of heat because of it. That's not just city government. That's county government. That's definitely state government. And yes, our federal government as well.
Why should we be running government like a business? Why do you think so?
Proof's in the pudding. Look at Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We are getting things done. We are operating efficiently, productively, with a service orientation. We are living within our means, and we've got a group of citizens that really think that we're doing good things, and there's plenty of others around America that are watching us too, wanting to follow our example.
So how do you run government like a business?
Been doing it for 7 years, and I look forward to doing it another year.
I mean, just how do you do it? What's the difference between, you know?
You take the things that you learned in corporate America, in small business and large business, and you infuse it into government.
So regardless of today's announcement, you will not run the city differently tomorrow as you did yesterday.
Dan, I think that's, thank you. Last week was as busy as I've ever been as your mayor. I was exhausted. And I've told folks that when I run a marathon, I sprint at the end. I've got a year and 4 months to go, and I'm going to continue sprinting and trying to lead the city in the most aggressive, productive, taxpayer-friendly way that I can, and ultimately keep getting things done. And again, I haven't eliminated the top 10 list of things that I want to try to tackle as you know, as the mayor of this city. And there's a fresh top 10 things that we're going to try to get done before I'm done being the mayor.
think this change will help you accomplish that top 10 a little easier, or
I'm sorry?
you think this change will help you accomplish that top 10 a little easier?
No, no, I mean, this change has nothing to do with being the mayor of Sioux Falls. Again, this is a personal decision that I made today. It's got nothing, you know, thank goodness, it's a strong mayor form of government that is nonpartisan in nature, whether it be the mayor, the city council, and so many others. So no, this announcement today should absolutely have no impact on me serving the people as their mayor. Well, I thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. I am going to the county administration building right now. And if there's any other questions at a later point in time, just give me a call or send me an email at my home email address, please. Thank you, and make it a great day.
Y'all come back now. Here.
Security, escort this gentleman out, please.
Come on, Soda Pop, let's go.